What do Shakespeare and invasive species have to do with each other? Maybe something, maybe nothing. But I'm so glad you asked. Hello everyone, I'm Aaron, a birding naturalist, and let's bust a myth. I'm in Ashland, Oregon right now with my family, and we are seeing some plays from the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And I thought that it would make an interesting time to talk about this connection, this hypothetical connection between Shakespeare and some invasive species that we have here in North America. So there is this myth in sort of birding that does connect starlings, and sometimes house sparrows, to Shakespeare. The myth goes something like this. In the 1800s, late 1800s, there was an effort by a group, usually pointed at New York, to introduce to Central Park all the birds of Shakespeare, all the birds mentioned in any of the works of the bard. It's usually for cultural reasons. And there are two names that are often associated with this myth. There's the organization called the American Acclimatization Society, and there's a guy, Eugene Schieffelin. Okay, so what's going on here? So the American Acclimatization Society was a group based in New York, founded in 1871, that had the goal of introducing species, mostly from Europe, to New York for human benefit. They had cultural reasons, they had economic reasons, were definitely the largest ones. They figured if there was a bird good at eating insects in Europe, they'd bring it over to the US, release it in the US, and it would eat insects here. And that would surely work out. Eugene Schieffelin was the chairman of the association for a little while, so he was definitely involved in this group. And he was definitely a proponent of releasing species from Europe into North America. These two, the man, Schieffelin, and the organization, the Acclimatization Society, released many different species. They released skylarks into the US, they released nightingales. All the members of those species died, so that was not a success in their mind. And also, they did certainly release house sparrows and European starlings. So, they were definitely a part of what was going on. But they were by no means the only ones. It's unlikely they were even the first ones. There were other groups releasing house sparrows and starlings. They definitely were other groups that had released the individuals of these species. And it's possible that the American Acclimatization Society might have been the first to make a successful release, but even that is kind of unlikely. Acclimatization societies were pretty common. They were formed in many countries around the world, and they all had this idea that if we can move species around, that maybe we can make things better for largely humans. We can find good uses for these species. So the best possible species of this could be released all over the place, and then everyone would have that best possible species. And isn't that a great thing? So these efforts occurred in North America from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and like I said, in several other countries around the world. So the American Acclimatization Society, they certainly bear their fair share of the blame, but they don't bear all the blame. They were hardly the only ones. They weren't even the first ones doing this kind of thing. And Schieffelin himself, while in my opinion certainly a nut, was hardly the only individual engaged in this work. The link with Shakespeare is more tenuous. Like Eugene Schaeflin and the American Acclimatization Society definitely have very clear links to introducing species that then took off and became invasive in North America. Like they definitely participated in that activity. The link to Shakespeare is a lot more tenuous. Schaeflin wrote that he liked Shakespeare, but that's about it. There's no link. There is absolutely no data that links any appreciation for Shakespeare by anybody directly to these are the species we're going to release in North America. That sort of a fantastical possibility that has arisen, told by other people, this myth that's created about this story. And I will say, it is a pervasive myth. I've heard it from tons of different people, and I will admit, I've even told other people this story. I thought, surely I've heard it from so many different sources, someone must have verified this, it must be true. Bad assumption on my part. If you ever heard this story from me, my apologies, please delete it from your memory. That's what we're doing here. We are busting myths, both in my own head and hopefully yours as well. One thing that I think that acclimatization societies really do highlight is just how much invasive species really are our fault. Humans did this. Humans went over to America, from America. They went to Europe. They got a bunch of skylarks. They brought them back to the US and they released them there. Now, skylarks, they all died. Turns out they don't do well in a New York winter. So in some ways, hey, no harm, no foul, right? But obviously that was not the case. People from North America went to Europe, or had others go to Europe, gather a bunch of European starlings, bring them to North America, release them there. Now, some of those starlings also died. It's not like it was 100% success, but many of them didn't die. And from initial populations, 50 birds here, 100 birds there, we now have a continent-wide population of over 200 million starlings in North America. Would the starling have made it to North America without human intervention? Seems pretty unlikely. I guess it's always possible, but it's pretty darn unlikely. We did this. Which means that now it is up to us, seems from my perspective, just a standard level of responsibility, that it's up to us to fix it. To say, okay, we messed it up, we should put it back together again. That only seems like the moral, ethical, responsible, grown-up thing to do. And I think this applies not just to starlings, not just to house sparrows, but to invasive species as a whole. We've done this. We should undo it. It's our responsibility. So, I think it is a lesson to be learned from examples like Eugene Schaeflin, like the American Acclimatization Society, and like invasive species efforts around the world. Introductions, not a good idea. I hope you enjoyed this video about the mythological connections between the European starling and the house sparrow and Shakespeare. And I hope now you know more of the actual story. Thank you very much for the view. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel. And until next time, enjoy the natural world.